You can have 1 million listeners on Spotify and not sell 12 tickets to a show. 1 million, 12 tickets. That's not a paradox. That's a system working exactly as designed. And once I understood why, I understood everything wrong with the music industry. Imagine you spend years working on your music. You upload everything to Spotify. Slowly you build until one day you hit 1 million listeners. 1 million people who every month choose to listen what you have created. Then you announce a live show and you sell 12 tickets. 12. Sit with that for a second, because that is not a paradox. That's not an anomaly. That's documented, repeatable, and that's a system designed as it was supposed to work. At the moment I understood why, I understood most of what's wrong with the music industry today. To understand when we ended up, you need to understand where we started. Because the music industry wasn't always like this. In the entire century, yes, an entire century, the majors weren't just record label. There was something much more interesting. Vertically integrated, this guide has music companies. Here's what I mean. RCA, Radio Corporation of America, had David Bowie and Elvis. But RCA had also invented the 45 RPM format and built the record players you listen to it on. Philips and Polygram had invented the cassette tapes. Sony had Michael Jackson and Springsteen co-invented the CD in 1992 and built the Walkman. You see what's happening. They own the artist, they own the plastic the art was pressed onto, and they own the machine to listen to it. Subtle business model. They control the entire chain, from talent to your ear. Nobody got in or out without going through them. The Napster arrived in 1999, and then within a few years, the entire industry collapsed. Here's the thing. Digital piracy did what no market force had never managed to do. A bunch of teenagers with dial-up modem destroys a multi-billion-dollar industry in under 5 years. You've got to respect it, at least a little. The majors didn't adapt. They decided to play defensively, which opened the door to someone from outside the industry, someone who could see exactly where things were headed. That someone was Spotify. But here's what most people get wrong about this. Spotify didn't take power away from the label. It actually married them. The majors became content providers. They took equity stakes in Spotify, and that felt like a win at the time. And music slowly, inexorably became like tap water. Exactly. Just like water. When a product is everywhere, identical, always available, it stops having a perceived value. It becomes a utility, like electricity, like running water. You turn off the tap, water comes out, and you don't think about it. You just let it run, right? Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, same catalog, millions of tracks, zero real differentiation. If you cancel Spotify tomorrow and you open Apple Music, you're gonna get exactly the same catalog. Nothing changed. Now, try to compare that with video streaming, like Netflix, HBO, Disney Plus, Total War. You need Netflix for Stranger Things. You need HBO for The Last of Us. You can't find it anywhere else. And in music, that will never happen, because majors sign a deal with every single platform at the same time. And this has a mathematical consequence that Wall Street has never loved. A standard tech business, more subscribers, better margin. For example, Netflix spends 20 million for a series. Whether 100 people, 100,000 people, 100 million people watch the series, the cost doesn't change. But music streaming works the opposite way. Platforms pay roughly 70% of every single dollar earned back to the right holders. So every stream costs them money. And costs scale linearly with the user base. Jimmy Iovine, co-founder of Interscope, one of the few people that actually understand both tech industry and music, said it very clearly. Streaming services are minutes away from being obsolete. Not years, just minutes. But of course, even if you cut the drama in half, the math is still real. An independent artist with, let's say, 100,000 monthly listener, which is not a bad number, makes roughly $350 before the label, before the publisher, before anyone else get his cut. You want to try with 1 million stream? It's basically the same. It's $3,500. Now it makes sense, doesn't it? But here, where it gets interesting. Some artists figure that out, and they're not necessarily the ones with the biggest number. Take two artists, same monthly listeners, let's say 500,000 each. One has been grinding and pushing playlists for 3 years, and the other one has a mailing list of 5,000 people and a 40% open rate. Who do you think sells more tickets? It's not even close, because those 5,000 emails are something no algorithm can take away. No policy change, no platform update, no shift in the recommendation logic. A direct relationship, unmediated, owned by the company and not by a Swedish tech company. 1,000 real fans with an email and the willingness to buy something are worth economically way more than 500,000 monthly listeners who play and then disappear. The industry spent decades obsessed with the idea to get 1 million people listening to a song. The next decade will be defined by who figures how to get 1,000 people to stick forever. And that's where the story gets complicated, because Spotify knows all of this, and they've known it for years. The most cynical part of this isn't even the money. It's something more fundamental. Spotify doesn't want you to have a relationship with your fans. It wants your fans to have a relationship with Spotify. They guard listeners like a fortress. Emails, behavior, listening patterns, because that data is the only real competitive advantage that they have left. So think carefully about what you're actually doing when you build your entire career on this platform. You're working every day to build an audience who actually doesn't belong to you, on a platform you don't control, with data you will never see. It's just like you are building a house on a rented land. And I want to be precise here. You're just an employee of a Swedish tech company that calls the work of your life content just to fill their servers. But here's what I actually believe. Tap water isn't going away. Spotify doesn't die as a consumption company. People will keep streaming forever. That's fine. That's not the point. The point is that you cannot build your entire career on tap water. You can only be found on streaming platform. Fandom has a structure, has a funnel. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Step 1, discovery, streaming, algorithms, playlists. This is tap water, usable for being found, useless for build anything real. Step 2, capture. An email address, a phone number, a contact that is generally yours and not rented from a platform. This is the bridge. Without this step, there is no relationship. You're just an anonymous data point in someone else's database. Step 3, monetization. VIP experiences, merch, tickets, access to something exclusive. This is where the actual economic value lives. The industry spent an entire decade obsessed with step 1. More streams, more playlists, more algorithm. But the real value was never there. The artists winning right now are not the one with the biggest number. They're ones who understood that one listener on Spotify worth nothing until they become something more. An email, a person who actually chose to follow you outside the platform. And I don't have the answers yet, but I know where to look. And that's exactly why we are building Fankee, the infrastructure that moves a listener from step 1 to step 3, the layer that has never properly existed before. If you want to follow where this goes, subscribe and stay tuned.